It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Mandy the Martyr. And now, on with the show! Hey everybody! It's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Schick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey, gang.
And Les Webster.
Hello, all.
How are you guys doing?
Doing all right.
Doing good, thanks. And you?
Doing all right. Hope everybody out there is doing okay. So what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
Well, I had slacked off a bit, but I have finally gotten back to where I'm starting to watch more of the Batman animated series on Amazon Prime. I'm just starting season 3, and I see. I have to say that I hadn't really watched them like this before. I had sort of caught one-offs while it was on the air back in forever ago, because we're old. So I kind of it's been almost a new experience. I mean, I remember certain episodes, but it's proving interesting. I mean, it's a 30-minute show, so there's not a ton of story necessarily, but it does things in subtle ways that kind of, I think, for lack of a better term, build the pantheon of Batman in ways that I kind of wasn't really expecting. I mean, it didn't surprise me because people have been talking about this series for decades, like I said, but I'm starting to get a feel for how it really worked and how it really affected people, and it's making a lot more sense to me now. It's very cool.
Very cool indeed.
It's a positive feeling you're getting out of it?
Oh, totally.
Good.
Yeah, I'm impressed with how subtle it kind of is at times. I wasn't expecting that much subtlety out of an animated series, even one like involving a character like Batman.
Awesome.
Nice to know.
How about you, Les?
This past weekend, I attended one day of the local convention, and I got to see some people that I knew, got to meet some people. I got a signature from John Barrowman, and what impressed me about this was people were standing in line. He was out front of his table, standing. He was there with the people, and you would walk up, and he was charging, of course, but when people were getting selfies taken, he would take the camera, put his arm around the person, and go smile. People would, and then he would go, okay, duck face, and people would make duck faces, and he'd take a separate shot with them.
Nice.
Very personable young man. He did not deflect any questions. The picture I got was his singing lead in Springtime for Hitler from the producers. He signed it, and it said, love ya, and then his name, and he said, I almost put down love ya Nazi. And I said, you should have. He said, that would have been so wrong. I'm going, who cares? It was funny. He was cracking jokes with everyone, and like I said, he was standing until the line was done. So to me, that was impressive.
Yeah, cool.
I saw one tweet of his, because I am following him on Twitter, Apparently, someone hugged him so hard that he had flatulence, and there was a picture of him on the floor laughing.
Oh no!
Nice.
Well,
So-
when I was up there, he burped to the side, and he came back, and I said, "Well, there's more room outside than there is inside." And he started to laugh over that. So
yeah, it's not,
So he's human. That's good to know.
yes,
he sounds like a trip.
So he's not like a robot or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Or a cabbage.
this is the guy that comes to a show, and before he goes to his table, before the show opens, we'll say show opens at 9. At 8:30, he'll walk the floor to see everybody and wave and see what goods they have for sale, things like that. So he makes it a point to be visible. He made the day, that's for sure.
Yep,
Very cool.
it's always cool to hear those kind of stories.
Yes, sir.
I had picked up a Epic collection from Marvel. It is X-Men Second Genesis. It was written by Chris Claremont with art by Dave Cockrum and John Byrne. And yes, this is the new Genesis, the new X-Men, the start of the new X-Men from Giant Size X-Men 1 through the regular series. Also includes Iron Fist 14 and 15, which is Iron Fist 14 is the first appearance of Sabretooth. And then Marvel Team Ups issues 53, 69, 70, and Annual 1. This is basically the first 3 years of the new X-Men. A lot of it I have read in reprints a long time ago. Some of them I have not read, and some of them I have, like I said, it's been a while. So it's kind of nice to go back and at least look at the art and go, oh my God, I remember this. And it's been fun reading these tales again. So, I mean, I'm not through it yet completely, but some really good stuff.
Nice.
Yep.
Very nice.
Before we get into this week's show, I need to take a couple minutes to thank our sponsors. First off, I want to thank Make Mine Indie for their support of the fellowship. If you're not aware of what Make Mine Indie is, it is an online catalog that includes print, digital, and web comics. You go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, and click on the sponsors page. There will be a link there that take you to their website, and you can download the spring catalog in either a PDF or CBZ file. It's 114 pages, and there's previews, reviews, interviews, a lot of good stuff of books that you may not be aware of. Some really good stuff. This is a godsend, in my opinion. This gives publishers a chance to be seen they hadn't been seen before, and readers get a chance to check out books that they would never have a chance otherwise. So definitely go check that out. Really cool catalog. And of course, this is brought to you by our friend Peter Samedi of Alterna Comics. So we thank them for their support. Also want to thank Things from Another World for being a sponsor of the fellowship. Right now, they're running their evergreen specials. 40% off of comics, statues, toys, and merchandise. 30% off pre-order manga titles. And of course, the ever popular 50% off Nick and Dent comics or graphic novels. So while you're on our sponsors page, if you just scroll down, click on one of the images there, that'll take you to Things from Another World's website. Let them know that we sent you their way, and take advantage of some of these great deals.
Mm-hmm.
Gang, y'all are in for a treat this week. We have Cullen Bunn on to talk about his upcoming title, Regression, which comes out May 10th from Image Comics. We'll talk a little bit about Harrow County and his Monsters Unleashed, which the miniseries just finished up and the ongoing is about to start. Little X-Men Blue and just a lot of good other stuff going on. So
We talked about a lot of stuff, yeah.
we talked about a lot of stuff. So sit back, enjoy the interview, because I know you will, because we did. And then after the break, we'll be back with our weekly picks. We are here today with Cullen Bunn, who's joined us to talk about his upcoming book, Regression, for Image Comics. Cullen, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. Happy to be here.
First off, we are big fans of yours, so we're gonna try to keep Mike from just kind of floating off in the clouds, because he's the biggest Cullen Bunn fan of the group. But we all enjoy your.
What you're saying is Mike's my favorite.
There you go.
Yes.
Discuss a little bit about Regression and where the idea came up for the book.
So Regression is an ongoing horror story. It's sort of a supernatural conspiracy tale, and it follows this guy Adrian, who sort of an everyday, average kind of guy, except that he's plagued with these waking nightmares that are just haunting him and kind of ruining his life. In an effort to rid himself of these hallucinations, he agrees to undergo hypnotherapy and partakes in a past life regression. And instead of improving things, it makes things much, much worse, because the life he visits during this past life regression is pretty horrible. And to make matters even worse, something follows him back to the present, and that kind of sets into motion some personal horrific moments for Adrian, but it also it starts building into this supernatural conspiracy, and sort of opens his eyes to a world that has been hidden from everyone, basically.
Okay, it's cool. And Mikey and I have read the first issue, and we were just. It took us a couple of minutes to pick up our jaws from the floor, especially with the ending. If that's not a spoiler, I mean, whatever.
Yeah, that's not a spoiler. That's fine. It's a comic. It's going to have a good ending, or we hope it has a good ending. That'll draw you back for the next one, right?
I think it's a very. Yeah. Yep, I think it's a very good ending.
It's pretty gripping, I must say.
You definitely want to pick up issue 2 to find out where things go from there. Definitely. I was surprised to find out that your dad was a professional hypnotist, and this is where some of the idea for the story came from?
Yeah, when I was very young, my dad, that's how he made his living. He was a jack of all trades, but for a little while at least, he performed on stage as a hypnotist. And those performances were pretty much standard kind of thing you might see in a comedy club. But eventually he stopped doing the on-stage performances, and he started doing these sort of semi-private sessions with smaller groups of people, and no audience, or no big audience anyway. And sometimes during those sessions he would perform past life regressions. And I sat in on a bunch of those, watched him do a bunch of those, and it's something that has just stuck with me all these years. Is watching those regressions, and we're talking 30 years ago, and I was that's kind of maybe even longer than that, and that's the stuff that was where the initial seeds for this story were planted, I guess.
Well, and there's a lot of room for variation out of a story like that too.
Yeah, I mean it's like I said, it's my fascination with past lives. It was the starting point, but from there, and that's the starting point of the comic. But it definitely blows up into something much bigger as with every issue that comes out. the story gets bigger and weirder and more epic, I guess, in scope.
Yeah, well, you had me at weirder, but anyway. So in addition to kind of that as a background for this book, I was taking a look at your bio, and one of the jobs you claim to have worked is alien autopsy specialist.
Yeah, some of those are fake.
Oh, all right. I was starting to wonder how that tied into this book, but
no,
okay.
Years ago, I worked as a professional resume writer, developing resumes for people, and I was always fascinated by the job titles that people wanted, some of the strange job titles that people wanted to put on their resumes. So over the years, I just kind of picked up a few. I thought alien autopsy specialist was a fun one, and if I were doing a resume today, I would probably work that in there somewhere just to see if people were really reading.
Oh, totally.
But no, some of those many of those job titles are very, very much fake. I was never an alien autopsy specialist. I was never. Well, I watched X-Files a lot, so maybe that qualifies.
Yeah, it's as good as any. I mean,
right. I was never a professional wrestling manager. I was never a lumberjack. So I don't know. There's probably some other ones on there that are not true as well.
So we're not likely to break into a rousing chorus of, "Oh, I'm a lumberjack and I'm okay."
It's almost definite that we won't. You might, but we will not.
Oh, man.
Leave the mic to bring Monty Python into the show once again.
It's gotten to be a running gag, man.
It's a running gag. Checking out the comic, the art is beautiful. And I was trying to find out information about Danny Luckert, and it looked like the only thing I had seen before is Haunted from, I believe it was Red 5 Comics. How did y'all meet, and what was the discussions like for this series, if you don't mind sharing?
Danny was working on another. He did another book called Tethered as well.
Okay.
That's a pretty great book. And he did that book with a writer named David Precht. And I may be pronouncing his last name wrong. I'm terrible with last names. But years ago, I was on the hunt for artists to work on some creator-owned projects with me. And I was just asking around, and I was asking if anyone knew of artists who might be interested in working on a project with me. And David suggested Danny and sent me some of Danny's artwork. And I loved it. I thought he had a really great visual style, and a style that stands out as uniquely his own. And I got in contact with him. This was, it might be 3 years ago now. And we started talking about, working on a creator-owned, book together. And this Regression was one of the books I pitched to him for us to work on. And it was the one he gravitated to, and he started doing some, concept art for me. And I love the concept art. I love the character designs, and we've been working on it now for, like I said, it's been a couple of years. We've been working on this project, so I'm very excited to finally see that it's coming out.
Well, the artwork's incredible, and the coloring is awesome too. I think, and I don't mean to turn this to me right now, but it seems that since we started doing this, I've learned to appreciate the coloring of comics as kind of, it's very underappreciated. And it's books like this, and there's a couple of books for Black Mass Studios and a couple others that are they're different color schemes and patterns, or it's kind of, to me, it's been very appealing.
I agree with you 100%. I feel like colorists are overlooked to some degree, but it's not as easy as people imagine. It's not like coloring in an adult coloring book. It's
Right.
colorists are storytellers just as much as the writer and just as much as the artist. At least the good colorist is. And Marie, who's coloring this, has made some really interesting choices, especially for a horror comic, because a horror comic, the art and coloring can tend to get a little murky and a little sketchy, and almost like you're trying, like I've read somewhere I felt like people were trying to hide what was going on almost to try to maybe add an element of mystery to the book. But Danny and Marie have taken the path of, no, they're bringing everything right into the light. They're not hiding anything in this book, and I think it was a really interesting choice, and I love the way that it's turned out, and I think it looks unlike any other horror comic that you might have read, because and that's all Danny and Marie doing their thing.
Yeah, see, I wonder if a lot of colorists have fallen into the trap of Lovecraft's whole fear of the unknown concept, and so they're like, ooh, so we'll make it really dark so people can't see anything, and then they'll be more scared. And I mean, yeah, that's fine for a while, but
and look, I believe in that concept of this fear of the unknown, but for me, and this has frustrated me for years and years reading comics before I was even doing anything professionally, is it is a visual medium, so you can't hide all the visuals, and that's the thing that I like about this, is that it's everything is very detailed and is right out there, and
right, it's got a little more realistic feel to it.
Yeah, for sure.
Which honestly, for my money, makes it just that much more creepy and scary, because hey, it makes it that much more relatable, I guess.
Sure, and I think some of this, the realism, it gets interesting, especially when, we get into some really bizarre stuff in the next few issues. So it's almost a shocking counterbalance, between the realism and the weirdness.
Right, and hopefully not to jump tracks too much, but one of the things that strikes me about the colors in Harrow County is that you've got that almost watercolor feel, and it makes the colors a little brighter in a way, which helps do the same thing. That's kind of
and
the
it's
same
not for Harrow County. That is watercolor. Tyler does all that by hand, watercolors. So and he and that's another book where he makes some very interesting choices and kind of plays against type. In Harrow County early on, there's some ghosts that appear, and instead of trying to color these ghosts in sort of a pale blues and grays and things like that, Tyler decided to color them almost flaming bright, and that really added something completely different to the book, and kind of helped to give it its own unique identity. Okay,
getting back to Regression, this is your first published work with Image. How did that come about? And as we kind of were saying before we started the interview, that we were kind of surprised that this was your first work, or at least first published work. Sorry.
Yeah. It's Image is a company I've wanted to work with for years. It was just a matter of getting the timing right, and making it happen. And Regression is not the first thing that I pitched to Image, or even that has been accepted by Image. I've got a couple of other books that are in the works with Image right now. One of them, I pitched several years ago. It's just a matter of the time of getting the book to a point where it's ready to release, so that it'll be hitting the stands in a timely manner. And it just so happens that Regression was just ready sooner than the other book. So it wasn't the first thing I pitched to Image. It's just the first thing that's coming out. Hopefully the first of many.
Cool. Because we're big Image fans as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, well,
Not
they're
that
putting
there's
out some. Yeah,
Not that
they're
there's
putting out
anything
some
wrong with
great
Dark
books.
Horse, but
Well, no, there's nothing wrong with Dark. It's nothing wrong with saying you're a fan of one. Saying you're a fan of one publisher doesn't mean you're not a fan of another automatically, contrary to what some folks may believe.
yeah. That's a vicious little trap that gets fallen into a lot with comics. There's the dichotomy thing, and it's just so crazy because I mean, all of the other publishers are putting out great stuff. I mean,
I agree, and it's fine to like more than one publisher. But,
it's even okay to like Marvel and DC, honestly.
It is okay to like Marvel and DC.
I know I'm like a heretic saying something like that, but
some people may think you are, but
that's all right.
It
won't be the first time I've been called that.
Yeah.
Les, do you have a question?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Cullen, as a young reader, did you gravitate toward the Warren publishers or EC Comics or something like that?
Well, first of all, Les, your voice is it sounds like I'm speaking to a spirit from beyond the grave right now. It's like you got this strange echo thing going on. It's really cool, but I don't know if it's intentional or if it's just the way things are coming through on my end. But it sounds like I'm being interviewed by a demon, and I kind of like it.
The funny thing is that it on the recording it never really sounds quite like that. It sounds a lot more normal.
It sounds awesome on this one. But I was more of a superhero fan when I was a kid. I was superhero and science fiction comics. That was the stuff I really loved, and that was my bread and butter. But there were plenty of times where I would pull out a stack, just a random stack of horror anthology comics, and we're talking like House of Mystery, House of Secrets, a bunch of the old Charlton horror comics and things like that. And I would just kind of binge read these horror anthology books. I did love the Warren magazines, but I never bought them when I was a kid. I remember reading them in there's a drugstore. Eckerd's Drugs always had them on the magazine rack. And I would remember while my mom was shopping in the drugstore, I would go and read Warren magazines, by the magazine rack, waiting for her to do, get whatever stuff she was getting. So that's when I was reading those. So I have sort of nostalgic, fond memories of the Warren magazines. But from a horror perspective, I was definitely reading more of the traditional comic book horror anthologies, and like I said, it was mainly the DC and Charlton stuff at that time.
Very nice. I know that you lean toward the horror and macabre type stories, but you've done stints with the big two, and currently you are still working with Marvel.
Yes.
Giving them some outstanding stories. And I'll tell you right off the bat that's what draws me to a comic more than art is the story itself. If it's going to bring me back for the next issue, then I'm all in. And I want to thank you because you have accomplished that.
Thank you.
I'm the one of the three that has not read Regression, and I plan on sitting down with it here shortly. But what my two compatriots have told me, I am in for one of the biggest treats, and of course then I'm ready for that too. The premise that you've already discussed sounds amazing, and it's just something that is a topic that should have been touched earlier. But thank you for bringing it forward.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited about the book. It's the kind of Regression's the kind of story that I think when you read the first couple of issues, I think readers will think they know where it's going, and then by issue 3 and 4, where we kind of turn the story on its ear, and then an issue or two later, we turn the story on its ear again, and we turn the story on its ear again. So it's a story that we see expanding and changing and evolving in some interesting ways. So I think if you like the first issue, I think as the book continues, it'll only continue to surprise you, and hopefully, I think it'll entertain folks. I think it's absolutely a horror book, but I think it has elements of, sort of dark fantasy and just from a character perspective, I think even people who aren't fans of horror stories will be able to get behind this book and follow along with it and enjoy it.
Thank you.
I do have one more little question about Regression.
Mm-hmm.
The bugs.
Yes.
Well,
that's not a question. Just saying bugs is not a question. That's just a statement. Bugs. But I think I know where you're going. If you don't like bugs, Regression is probably not the book for you.
See, I can't stand bugs, but I'm all over this book. I mean, so maybe that's just how weird I am. But
I don't know if it's a leftover from watching the Amityville Horror when I was a kid, and the flies in that movie, which were associated with sort of this demonic activity. But something about that has always connected insects with this supernatural, sinister forces, and with Regression, I'm really just going full tilt into that because the insect motif follows through every issue of the series.
Oh wow, cool.
You have been warned, Mike.
I view it as a challenge.
Well, I want to say the names Warren and Eckert brings back so many memories.
Yeah,
where are you guys located?
We're in Dallas.
Okay,
Yeah.
Dallas.
Yeah,
okay.
So we had Eckerts up until, I don't know, 25, 30 years ago.
All right, yeah.
I remember there being an Eckerts, I think when we were in high school.
Yeah.
So in the 80s, there was still an Eckerts. There was still
I wasn't sure how nationwide Eckerts was.
Yeah, I think it was pretty regional, but
Yeah.
it was in our region too.
That's awesome.
Well, if we're kind of moving off of Regression at this point, if you don't mind my asking, Cullen.
All right.
If we could talk about a couple of your other projects.
Yeah, that's fine. Whatever you guys want to talk about.
One that I am kind of curious about is one that I haven't actually heard anything about in a while, which would be The Empty Man.
The Empty Man, yes.
Yes. What's going on with The Empty Man? If you can tell us.
Well, I can tell you, I don't think there's any big secrets that I can't share with The Empty Man. So, it's been a little while since I did that original series. It has been under development by 20th Century Fox as a motion picture. They have wrapped principal photography on it, so it's pretty close to, as far as Hollywood close goes, it's pretty close to being ready to be seen in theaters.
So it's like in post-production.
Yeah, I mean,
wow.
Yeah, it's a
thing.
moving right along. Yeah, and we are returning. I am returning to The Empty Man. I've written a couple of scripts for the new series, so I'll be returning to that world and that comic in the very near future. I'm not sure when that's going to be on the shelves, but the Empty Man comic is coming back, and we're gonna, I'm launching this new series. It is a sequel to the previous series, but it's also, I'm writing it in such a way that it could be read as the first experience with this, with the world. A new reader could come and pick it up and follow right along with it. and then go back and get the other book if they wanted to. Only because it's been a little bit since the first one came out, so I wanted to make it as accessible as possible.
Right. Cool.
And if I wasn't supposed to announce that that's coming out, they should have told me.
Well, how involved with that film process were you?
They kept me pretty apprised. I saw all the the initial pitches for it. I saw all the scripts for the for the movie, and I saw as they were filming things, they were I was getting clips of the movie and things like that. But they kept me more involved than they probably needed to. But it's not like I was sitting there giving them I gave them any suggestions I had on the script or anything, but I was not sitting there, line editing the thing, and
they weren't asking for your approval. They were just kind of
they didn't, they honestly they didn't need my approval at that point.
Right.
But it was definitely left in the hands of the folks who knew who know what they're doing when it comes to making a movie. So I think it's gonna be pretty. It's definitely a very creepy movie, so I'm excited about that.
I'd say I am too, really.
Well, speaking of stories that are being developed, I believe I heard that Harrow County is being developed as a TV series. Am I not mistaken?
It is. It's currently kind of in the initial stages with Sci-Fi Channel. There's been an outline put together for a 5-season series, and the first episode has been written, and it's kind of in that initial approval stage. So we're waiting to see if it gets approved to go to pilot, or how things carry on from there. But yeah, they've been working on the initial script and the story for a little while now, and kind of massaging it and tweaking it here and there, and getting it ready with the goal in mind being that it's going to be the script and outline's going to be so good that Sci-Fi can't help but make the series.
Well, that'd be good.
Yeah, it's Becky Kirsch, who's writing the show, who's written the first episode and put the outline together. She really has a great sort of sense of what works in television, and she really loves the source material. So I think it could be really exciting, and it could be a really cool show. It's just a matter of jumping through the hoops that we have to jump through to present it in the best possible light and get it approved.
Well, that's exciting.
Very.
Because that's been a fun series too, so it would be nice to see it live action.
Yeah, no, I would love to see it I'd love to see what it would look like brought to life.
Right.
Oh, totally. I'm in on that one for sure. I'll go get Sci-Fi. I don't care. Whatever. Well, in a from this to this sort of transition, tell us a little bit about how Deadpool's going.
It's going well. I've been writing so many Deadpool miniseries at this point. I don't know how many issues it all totals up to, how many issues of Deadpool I've written now, but I've got to be in the 40 or 50 issues worth of Deadpool at this point. So I feel like I'm definitely locked into that family to some degree. It was one of the first things I really did with Marvel, which was Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe was one of the first miniseries I did with Marvel, and that's still to this day one of the most popular books I've ever I've written. It's still, if I take them to conventions and set up, I'm going to sell out of Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe, no matter how many copies I bring. It seems.
It's a nice problem to have.
Yeah, it is, and I'm still doing new Deadpool stuff. I mean, I'm working on books for the that'll be coming out in the future as well. So I don't think I'm going anywhere with Deadpool. I'm not leaving Deadpool anytime soon. It's a little weird only because for so long I was doing all of the Deadpool miniseries, and then I started seeing other people attached to them, and I kind of got a little bent out of shape. Not bad, but I was like, what? Somebody else is doing a Deadpool miniseries, and I'd feel a little bit like I'd feel a little protective, I guess, of Deadpool for some reason, but I'm over that now. There's plenty of room in the Deadpool mythos for other creators to be writing those stories too.
Well, since Mikey brought up Marvel, I see that you're going to be doing the X-Men Blue series, which I'm signed up for. You're part of the reason I like the lineup, because I've always liked the classic group, although obviously this is a little different since they're the time-displaced characters. What is it about these characters that say, hey, I want to write this book? Sorry.
Well, initially it was Marvel came to me and said, you're going to be writing the original 5 X-Men.
Oh, okay.
It's an interesting position to be in.
With that in mind, and I've been pretty straightforward about it. Initially, I love the X-Men in all their incarnations, but when I was initially approached about this book, my first reaction was, well, these aren't my X-Men. I came on to X-Men during the Claremont era, and for whatever reason, I was just kind of I wasn't sure if the original 5 X-Men, I could tell the type of stories that I wanted to tell. Now, once I got past that and started writing the stories, I realized the book I'm writing is a very, very Claremontish X-Men title, and it's just focusing on those 5 characters. And I've been having so much fun telling the story. I forget I forget that it's not the X-Men that I loved, because I'm telling the kinds of stories that I've always loved about X-Men. So I think I get it. I get it and I don't get it. I know that there are people out there who just don't like the time-displaced X-Men. I guess the reasoning is that it messes with continuity, or that these aren't, they think maybe these aren't the X-Men, the real X-Men, they're from some alternate universe. I get messages and tweets all the time saying, well, these are alternate universe characters, so they're not important. To which, I usually don't respond at all to those, but, my response would be, first of all, you don't know that they're alternate universe characters. And as I'm approaching them, they are not alternate universe characters. These are the X-Men, and, time displacement and time paradoxes, that's X-Men 101. That's stuff that has been going on in X-Men forever. So, I would say to people who are upset about the time displacement, maybe you aren't the X-Men fan that you think you are. And secondly, aren't all of these stories alternate universe stories? It's kind of a silly argument anymore in an era when readers are defining their own continuity by what they choose to read. There's multiple series. Some readers only read a certain series and they ignore everything else. Or readers completely ignore story arcs that they don't like or they didn't agree with. Readers are defining their own continuity. So everyone is reading an alternate universe story at some point. And I think maybe readers just need to get over that a little bit.
It all gets a little too Marshall McLuhan for my taste when it boils down to that.
Well, it's it's one of those. I was a huge continuity nerd when I was a kid and reading these comic books. Everything had to fit into into a certain order, and I needed to know where it all fit, and I needed to know when the story occurred in relation to, this other story that was taking place in comic books across the line. But as I got older, I realized that none of that matters. None of it. The only thing that should matter is that you're enjoying the book and relating to the characters and, hopefully having some sort of emotional connection to the character and to what's going on, without really getting hung up on, when did this happen in relation to the event that took place, last year. I don't know, and I don't care. And that's and honestly, I wish people would get a little less hung up on that stuff and more just hung up on enjoying a good story.
Right. It's about the emotion that's evoked, not about the history that it's screwing up.
Right. I mean, and yes, it's going to happen. I mean, in a shared universe, things are going to get messy at some point, and things are going to get messed up. That's just part of a shared universe. And then there are going to be retcons, and that's, or corrections, or, that's just what happens in this kind of book. And with a shared universe as long and storied as the Marvel universe, there's no way around it. You can't maintain continuity 100% of the time. I mean, maybe some people can, but not when you're dealing with multiple writers and multiple editorial offices and stories and characters that, go back 30, 40, 50 years. It's kind of an impossibility.
Yeah, there aren't enough editors in the world.
There's not, no.
not for that.
It's like you said, as long as it's a good story and that you care about the characters, I mean, the rest of it, to me, there's times where that kind of stuff kind of irks me about continuity, but I try to block that out sometimes. It's kind of hard, but I mean, as a kid, I never really thought about, you talk about when you were a kid, you were reading and you were thinking about that. To me, it didn't dawn on me that, I'm reading this week, I may be reading Batman and he's getting, he's tied up on a train track about to be run over. And then next week I'm picking up Justice League and he's off in Mars. And I've never really thought about that. But there came a time where that kind of happened. But now I'm trying to go, hey, I want to be entertained. I want a good story. With some beautiful art and something that I'm ready to go for a ride for 22 or 32 pages or whatever. Just one little enjoyment. And, I get that. Fortunately, I get that.
Fortunately. Yay.
And I do want to say thank you for bringing back Black Tom in the X-Men Prime special. That was great. I can't remember last time I've seen him in a comic. It's been a while.
Well, I brought him back actually in Uncanny X-Men. My recent run on Uncanny X-Men, he appeared in a few issues.
Okay.
But yeah, he's a character I've always really liked. I even liked him when he was like a giant tree creature. Comics. But yeah, I've always liked him, and for X-Men Blue, I wanted to start things off with a character who as kind of a tribute to classic X-Men stories, and I felt like who's more, what's a more X-Men, a classic X-Men villain team than Black Tom and Juggernaut. Right. So that's why I wanted to start with those guys in the first issue.
Yep. Well, thank you for that.
I did it just for you.
Well, I appreciate it because I had been away from X-Men for a while, and with Resurrection and these new books coming out, I'm like, well, I'm gonna give it a try. And of course, you were added bonus. So, and I enjoyed the X-Men Prime special, so I'm very hopeful for these new books. So,
Well, I think those books they're gonna be a lot of fun for X fans, you know, and really just comic fans in general. We wanted to do something that you know, people who had been away for a while from X-Men books could come back into the series and into the various series and enjoy them. But we also wanted to, you know, do something for people who had never read an X-Men book. You know, we wanted something that they could pick up straight away and enjoy and follow the story pretty easily. Which, you know, that's a challenge sometimes for the X-Men. Again, mainly because the storyline is so, you know, so long and intricate. You have to, you know, as writers, you have to be careful that you don't get lost in that stuff, because you can very easily lose a reader who's not familiar with, you know, those storylines. You know, I brought back characters, you know, who appeared in the 90s in X-Men books, and in my mind, I just assume, you know, the default position for me is everybody knows who, you know, the Dark Riders are, because, you know, that's when I was reading comics. But that's not the case. There are many people who were not reading comics when the Dark Riders appeared, and have never read some of these books that, in my mind, still register as relatively recent books. But then I start thinking about it, and I'm like, oh, those books are 20-something years old. And people just don't, you know, there are readers now who've only been reading comics for, you know, a year or 2 years or 6 months.
Since the first Iron Man movie came out.
Or since the first Iron Man movie. But even the first Iron Man movie, what year did that come out?
2009.
All right, so, you know, it's getting up there. You know, it's closing in on a decade.
Yeah.
And there are readers who, you know, were not reading comics when the first Iron Man movie, and maybe didn't start reading until Guardians of the Galaxy came out, or the Doctor Strange movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're only now, you know, starting to get introduced to these characters. And, you know, so you have to be careful with that kind of with the sort of twisted continuity stuff, because you don't want to alienate people who are just getting started in comics.
Well, heck no, that would not be good. That doing that feeds back into the problem that comics had 10, 15 years ago anyway, where the target audience started aging normally with the population, and they weren't bringing in any new readers at all. And so that's a finite group of customers there, and that's not good.
No. And, you know, it's a little bit tougher. These, you know, you can't go to Eckerd Drugs and find your comics anymore. You know, you have to. It's become a little more of a niche kind of thing.
Right. You end up having to find a specialized store, and I mean, yeah, you could go anywhere back in the day and get something. Anyway, it wasn't always a great selection, but there was something there.
Right.
And and so now you almost have to hunt for it. And then being available online is great, but it's, again, doesn't really hit a huge segment of the population. It's not as huge as they want anyway.
Right.
Cullen, let me ask you this. Well, I want to say this. Congratulations on Monsters Unleashed. It's become quite the read. The miniseries was well done, and of course you've started the new series. And I just want to say thank you, because I appreciate you bringing back characters that haven't been around for over 50 years and closing in on 60. But that's where I first found Marvel Comics, was the old Tales of Suspense and things like that, prior to them going to superheroes.
Sure. To
see some of these characters again just makes me ecstatic. I mean, I can remember as a 10, 12-year-old kid reading that stuff. and now I get to see them again, and they've got new slants, and they've got more vibration to them. I mean, they are real now, not just a cartoon figure that they did when they first appeared in comics. So once again, my hat is off. I thank you very much for restarting these for us too.
Yeah, it was so many people forget that these monster stories is really where Marvel kind of took off. I mean, that was what they were doing back in the day, and those characters many of those characters have kind of fallen to the wayside over the years and been forgotten. But we wanted to bring these monsters back into the Marvel Universe and make them part of the Marvel Universe in a much bigger way. And that's that was a sort of the driving focus of the Monsters Unleashed miniseries. Is one, we would introduce these classic Marvel monsters, but then we'd also introduce sort of a new wave of giant monsters and these mega creatures, a new wave of them into the Marvel Universe as well. And really it changes the landscape of Marvel a little bit, because up until now it's been superheroes and supervillains, but now you add the fact that there are a known number of giant monsters loose in the world. What does that how does that change the world? What does that mean for the heroes? And now we've also introduced sort of a new team of heroes kind of focused on dealing with giant monster threats. So it kind of just adds a new corner to the Marvel Universe.
Kaiju fighters.
Yeah, it's basically adding kaiju into the Marvel Universe, and you'll be seeing them. They're going to be obviously a big part of the Monsters Unleashed ongoing series, but kaiju are going to be showing up in other Marvel books from this point on. It's basically almost an introduction of a new supervillain group that's going to be out there and should be, I think will be present for years to come now.
Right, and it makes perfect sense in a superhero-esque world, honestly.
Sure.
It's a big bad. It's something big and strong that the good guys can go fight and defeat, and they come back, and just like any other supervillain, it's just bigger.
Right. And yeah, the new Monsters Unleashed series, if I'm being completely honest, I love it so much more than the miniseries event. I think it's going to be a better book. I think it will be it'll be more exciting for readers. It's a story that going into it, I wanted to make sure this is not sort of it's not the kind of comic that sort of takes place in the margins of the Marvel Universe. It's 100% ingrained in Marvel. So it's there's going to be supervillains in the book, and they're going to be major Marvel supervillains, and we're going to see S.H.I.E.L.D. and Damage Control and Herbie robots and all the things that kind of make make great Marvel comics are going to be part of this book. It's not taking place on the sidelines. It's right there in the thick of things.
In your spare time, and I know you have plenty.
Spare time?
Are there any comics that you're following?
I read I go to the comic shop every at least I try to get in every Wednesday, but at least weekly, and I pick up a handful of comics. I think I'm still reading the Mighty Thor, and I read most of the new books that come out, and I read all the X-Men books, obviously. I buy a lot of trade paperbacks these days, and I've got a stack of trade paperbacks sitting right next to my desk that I need to get to. I need to I need to finish. I need to dig into a little bit. I'm right now. I'm reading the trade paperbacks of Rick Remender's Low, which is a great book, and I'm reading Jeff Lemire's Descender, and I'm reading those in trade. But I love those books, and it's one of those things. I follow a lot of different things, but right now it feels like I'm following a lot of trades.
I thank you for mentioning Low, because that is one fine read.
Well, if nothing else, it's a beautiful book. Even it is absolutely just a gorgeous book. But it's a really a fun fun story. And one of the things I love about, as much as I complain that I've got a stack of trade paperbacks here that I need to get to, I do like that, I can read Low Volume 1 and I've got Volumes 2 and 3 ready to go in the stack. And yes, I take a little bit of a risk by buying, 3-4 volumes deep in a book I may not have read. But so far it has not, I don't feel like I've ever been let down.
Okay, so I'm going to throw one more your way.
All right.
A book of yours that I've been enjoying greatly, Conan the Slayer.
Yes.
How did you get involved in, to a certain extent, rebooting Conan?
Well, Dark Horse, has been doing these Conan books for several years now. This new series of Conan books, and they're following a certain continuity. There's an order that they want the adaptations of the Robert E. Howard stories to appear in. And then there's room between those adaptations to add new stories into the mix. And, they called me, I guess it's been a couple of years now, and asked if I'd be interested in writing Conan. And I'm a pretty big Robert E. Howard fan. Definitely of his Conan stuff, but also his Solomon Kane stuff and the horror stories he wrote. So I was Conan was probably a bucket list character for me, and Dark Horse came with a plan. I'm going to write 25 issues of the series, and during that 25 issues, I'm adapting 2 of Robert E. Howard's stories. And between those stories, I get to kind of fill in the blanks of what's going on between the stories and add some new characters and do some different things with it. So, it was a pretty exciting proposition for me right out of the gate. And I won't say that it's necessarily an easy project, because for whatever reason, writing Conan is tough. It's not that it's not fun and enjoyable, but I struggle sometimes with Conan because I want it. I really struggle with the tone of that series and wanting it to fit sort of my view of what a Robert E. Howard story is, and I want to write it in such a way that if Robert E. Howard were alive today and reading it, I would hope he would approve. And for whatever reason, that kind of weighs heavy on my shoulders, and I definitely spend quite a bit of time on each of those scripts.
That's a kind of a high bar to set for yourself, really. I could see.
Well, it is, yeah. I mean, it's I feel like I'm contributing to something, sort of an ongoing mythology, and I just want to make sure I do it right.
Well, if my opinion is worth anything, I think you are doing it right.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Just out of curiosity, how many scripts do you write a month? Because you got quite a few books.
There's a lot
going on.
Man.
Yeah, just curious.
I don't. I'm afraid to actually sit down and count them off. To be honest with you, I'm afraid what it would mean. So
if you count 1 month, you'll look at it and go, "Oh, how in the crap am I ever going to write that many more next month?"
Right? Yeah, I might be. I might be quickly overwhelmed by it. I mean, to some degree, it's a little misleading. because it's not like I have to write an issue a month for some of these series. I mean, if you look at take Regression, for example, we're 7 issues in before the first issue has even come out. So the deadline on that is not as it's not as pressing, really. The only thing I have to make sure of is that Danny has stuff to work on. That's the most important thing. In some books, Darth Maul, for instance, with Marvel, I'm done with that series. I've been done with it for a while now. So, it's not something that I have to work on, every week there has to be a new Darth Maul or whatever. I've done that book a while ago, and in some cases other books I've written a year or more ago. It's just the way scheduling has fallen. But even with all that said, right now I'm very, I have a lot going on. I'm very busy with these things, but I'm also looking forward to a time in the not so distant future where my schedule kind of opens up a little bit.
Okay, guys, y'all have any other questions? Because I know we kept them on. We kept you on for a while, Cullen.
Yeah, I almost feel guilty about that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I do to an extent, but we got to save some questions for next time Cullen's on, though.
That's right.
Oh, all right. Sounds good.
Well, I'm sure there'll be a bunch more books to talk about by then too. So.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about Unsound, and then Damn. Those are coming out here soon too.
They are, yeah.
Well, when they get closer, I'm sure we can set something up.
I like to stay busy.
Yeah.
You do well at it too.
Well, Cullen, we appreciate you coming on board, and we wish you success on Regression. We think it's going to do real well. Thank you for being with us.
Well, thanks so much for having me, guys. I'm like I said, like you guys said, I'm sure we'll be talking again in the near future.
Awesome.
Right. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks,
Thank you,
guys.
sir.
Thank you. And we're back. It is weekly picks time, and leading off this week is Mike.
I'm leading off this week, and with no shock to anybody, I've got an Image title. My first pick is 7 to Eternity, number 5. This is the start of a new arc, the second arc for this book. And if you're not familiar, this is written by Rick Remender and drawn by Jerome Opena. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Sorry if not. But this is 7 to Eternity is the story of a family on a pretty dark and gloomy world who have, what's the best way to put this? Essentially, they're cursed. The local warlord is not happy with their entire family. The father essentially crossed the warlord at some point. He'd served him for a while, or maybe it's been a little while since I read this book. But anyway, so the eldest son it's now fallen to him to kind of clear the family's name so that the family can be safe again, because they've been in hiding for years. And so there was a big showdown at the end of, obviously, at the first arc. This is the start of the second arc. It's a very, very interesting book. Very cool.
Yep. It's been pretty cool so far.
It is certainly better than I just described it. Because that was pitiful. But anyway.
And the first trade is coming out soon, too.
Yep.
Awesome.
Just pick that up, too. But
yep.
Who am I to tell you what to spend your money on?
Alrighty, Les.
My first choice is from Titan Comics, called Super Mansion, number 2. And in this series, you've got, it's based on an Emmy-nominated animated series. I have yet to find this, but I'm sure it's out there. But an aging superhero, Titanium Rex, lives with his ragtag team known as the League of Freedom. They live in this building, the Super Mansion, and they are trying to stay relevant. Of course, people don't quite understand them. They don't revere them as the superheroes believe they should be. But this is issue 2. It's a 4-issue series. And I believe I made mention of it on a previous broadcast. So hopefully you picked up that one and are continuing the read here.
Yeah, I agree.
Sounds like fun. Does it have the reality TV vibe that it sounds like it might have from your description?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it does.
In that case, yeah, that does sound like fun.
Yeah. Alrighty, for my first choice, this was going to be my choice regardless, but the timing happens to be very fortunate. But it's X-Men Blue, #1 from Marvel Comics. The writer is Cullen Bunn, with illustrations by Jorge Molina and Matteo Buffagini. I'm sure I butchered that last name, and I apologize. First issue, new series. It is the time-displaced X-Men, with Jean Grey being the leader of the team, which is would be an interesting change. And apparently Magneto is going to be having some ties to this team, which is also an interesting development. So it sounds like Marvel's trying to do everything in their to not just in the X-Men, but the rest of the Marvel universe, to try to turn the tone back toward more superheroics and less political and not very antagonistic to each other. Easy for me to say. And if you read the X-Men Prime one shot, you definitely got that vibe, because it was kind of mentioned that yeah, we need to think more about being heroes than just being mutants. So definitely like the vibe that I'm getting so far. Hopefully that's a sign of things to come, and maybe a return to greatness. So
Yeah, more fighting, less drama.
well, more fighting the bad guys and not fighting each other. That would be nice too.
That definitely.
We've already had that talk about hero versus hero.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, so they just didn't get the memo. They just didn't download the podcast, and shame on them for not doing that.
Seriously, that's what I'm talking about.
So, Mikey, you are up again.
I am up again, and my second book is a Titan book. It is Sky Doll Sudra, #2. This is, I did not realize, but this is a 2-issue series. So this is the finale. I'm doing something a little out of character with this one. I usually am very much a story guy, and I'm not saying this book doesn't have a story, but what drew me to this book was the absolutely stunning art. This is one of the most just straight up beautiful books I have seen in a while. And I'm not normally I'm not trained in art or anything. So I kind of just sort of know what I like, and this is a really pretty book. There is a story, and it's kind of space opera-ish, and has to do with the main character has a lot going on, and I'll just kind of leave it at that. I don't want to spoil too much. Read the first issue, and then pick up the second one. It is very cool, very much worth it.
Yeah, I agree. The art it's just mind-blowing.
It is. It's just unbelievable.
That was originally a Marvel title, was it not?
Not sure.
I don't. Yes, actually, this says it was.
Okay.
And it was created by Disney animators as well, which may not be surprising to some, but yeah, very, very, very fun stuff.
Awesome. Les, you are up again.
My second choice comes from Action Lab Danger Zone, and it is Amerikarate #2 by Brockton McKinney, or by Devin Roth. If you read the first issue, this will continue the goofiness of the series. The main character, Sam Kickwell, has been thrown back into the professional world of karateing thanks to a ninja assassin who, and this is sad, but took his limbless brother's life. Kickwell is preparing for the fight, and while he does, he inadvertently comes face to face with an FBI karate expert, Cynthia Weaver. Now the question is, will the two of them team up, or will the two of them end up in a karate fight that just takes them over? I read the first issue, and I'm a grown man, but I giggled through 2/3 of this comic. It is that funny.
I would have liked to have seen that.
Yeah.
Videos are available.
Ooh, cool.
Oh, cool. Nice.
I'm not giving you my credit card number. It's not happening.
That's right. No. I don't blame you for that. My second choice, it's not Image or Titan, it's from Valiant. It is Immortal Brothers, The Tale of the Green Knight. And this is going to feature, if you're a Valiant fan, you already know. It's going to feature Armstrong, and I'm sure Archer will be around, Gilead, the Eternal Warrior, and Ivar, the Time Walker, who are all immortals. And it's taking place during the time of Camelot, and they're going to deal with the mysterious Green Knight, which I know nothing of the Green Knight. I hate to say that. Is that part of the Arthur lore, or is this something that they created for the book?
No, it's part of Arthurian lore. Yeah, Sir
Okay.
Gawain and the Green Knight.
Okay, I guess that shows you my ignorance of the lore. So, I apologize, but yeah, this ought to be cool.
Man.
Written by Fred Van Lente, who's we're fans of him, and illustrated by Kerry Nord, and of course we're fans of him as well. So, I believe this is a one shot. If it's not a one shot, it's going to be a very limited series. But I think this is going to be, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time the brothers have been all together since the relaunch of Valiant. So this is kind of to me, I think this is a big deal that the brothers are all together.
Yeah, I know we've seen like two of them together for short periods, but I don't remember.
Yeah, but I don't think all three. Yeah.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I know when the Ivar Time Walker book started, I think Gilad was in the first issue, but he wasn't there long, or something like that. But anyway,
right.
Yeah.
So.
And you're right, it is a one shot.
Okay.
Cool. Yep, I'm looking forward to that one too.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Honorable mentions this week.
Yes. I certainly don't want you to go out on your own with this, so my honorable mention for this week is Harrow County #22. A Cullen Bunn book with art by Tyler Crook. And yeah, I mean we've actually sung the praises of this book. Okay, I usually start that conversation, but these guys back me up.
Right.
About Harrow County. It's a really, really cool book, and if you're not reading it, well, gosh, come on now. this week is your chance. Go grab number 22. Start from there. We're like mid-arc, but Emmy made an interesting discovery the end of last issue, and we're going to get to see where that went.
And there's 2 volumes out right now, if I'm not mistaken. If they're 22, there should be. I know that volume 1's out, but I'm pretty sure volume 2 is out now too.
There are trades.
Yeah. Maybe even a volume 3. We'll see.
Could be. We could check. Yeah.
Yeah. Les, do you have a honorable mention?
My HM is Batman 66 Meets the Man from U.N.C.L.E. This is the trade paperback that collects the series that ran, I want to say, 6 issues. And you've got U.N.C.L.E. with the United Network Command of Law and Enforcement versus, along with the Bat family trying to fight Thrush and their evil scheme. This story takes place in Europe rather than all in Gotham City. And through this story, it's kind of funny because they're trying to keep their secrets, their secret identities hidden. So they're able to pull off that 66 feeling of Batman as they fight alongside Ilya and Napoleon. It was a fun read as in single issues, and here you've got the whole thing in one package.
I may have to check that out. I didn't get the miniseries, but it would be interesting to see the mixture because the shows are so diverse. I mean, you're talking Ultimate Camp plus with the Ultimate Action show, right?
Yes, but you've got to look at U.N.C.L.E. also as being pretty camp.
They had their humorous moments for sure.
They're not like Wild Wild West, but they do have their funny spots in it.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
My honorable mention is from DC as well, and is Legionnaires Book 1 with Mark Waid, Tom Payer, and Tom McCraw as writers, and Jeffrey Moy and Lee Moder as illustrators. This collects Legion of Superheroes 0 and 62 through 68, as well as Legionnaires 0 and 19 through 24. And these were books that came out during the 90s that basically was more or less a relaunch, if I'm not mistaken, of the classic Legionnaires, because God knows Legion has had so many reboots and revisions and all that. It's not even funny. But I remember some of these books when they come out and digging it. So I'm glad to see this coming, not only to go back and check those out again, but obviously maybe giving us some more hints that we may be seeing the Legion of Superheroes returning to publications again. Because why would they do that? Why would they just do a collection of a book of a group of characters that are not going to be in the public's awareness? So we'll see.
Very true.
I mean, they're doing the collection of Batman Wildcat, which is supposed to be out real soon, if not out now. That makes me, of course, with all the little nods about the Justice Society returning at some point. So.
Mm-hmm. Maybe they have a plan.
Oh, I think they have a plan. We just don't know it yet. So. Okay. Any special mentions this week? besides thanking Cullen Bunn once again for joining us.
I'm down with that. Absolutely. It was a lot of fun.
Yep, it was a blast.
True, it was.
So, no other special mentions from you guys?
No,
All right.
Not here.
Okay. Okay, well, let's get to our regular shout-outs. First of all, I want to thank Manny the Martyr for the awesome music for our podcast. Great guys, awesome musicians. Go check them out. We'll have a link in our show notes. If you go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, go to our podcast page, you'll see their logo. You can click on that. That'll take you to their page. Give them guys a listen. You won't regret it. Thank you, guys. Second of all, I want to thank the fine folks at Potter and Family who've spread the word of the fellowship from the beginning. Hashtag Potter and Family. If you go to Twitter and put that in the search engine, and you'll find any kind of podcast that you may be looking for. Some great stuff out there. Some really cool people. We do thank them for getting us out there, and Mikey and I have done our darndest to return that love. So thank you guys so very, very much.
Yep.
And finally, you, dear listener, thank you for downloading this and prior episodes. Thank you for listening. We value your feedback. If you have any kind of comments, suggestions, questions, anything you may want to take us to task with, hey, let us know. We're always open. The best way to get a hold of us is either you could go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, and go to our About Us page. There's a contact form there that you can fill out. Or you can just send us an email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can contact us through social media. We are on Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks, as one word. Go ahead and like us there, and you can contact us through there, or just do a little shout out to us. Be much appreciated. We're obviously on Twitter as well, at Fellowship Geeks. Go ahead and follow us there, and send us a message if you like. Just let us know what you think of the show if you want. And of course, we'll respond in kind. Say thank you for following us. Thank you for the support. Mikey has his own Twitter page, at Mikey Geek. I have one as well, at TomTCGeek. If you want to, go ahead and follow us. Let us know that you're a fan of the show. And of course, we'll respond in kind and say thank you. And all that good stuff. And wherever you download our podcast, whether it's through iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or if you just listen to us through YouTube, if you could, just rate us through whatever rating system they have, whether it's stars or thumbs up, thumbs down, or whatever. That would be much appreciated. And if you have a couple extra minutes, a review would be awesome as well. Did I leave anything out?
No. I think you got it.
Do we have a question of the week, or are we gonna give them a break this time?
Oh no, there's no breaks.
No.
We may get really silly at times, but there's no breaks. Speaking of silly, are you creeped out by bugs in comics or otherwise?
You know, it's so funny when y'all were talking about that. I was thinking of the final story in Creepshow with
The one with Stephen King?
No, the one where he was in the isolated room, and there was the bugs everywhere, and he was spraying them and that kind of thing.
Right. That one, yeah.
Yeah, the very last one. I can't remember who the actor was. It was, but I was thinking about that entire time that y'all were talking about that. So it was kind of strange, but the way the mind works sometimes. So there's your question of the week, folks.
Yep,
let us know.
how creeped out you are by bugs. My creep out level's pretty high, I'll tell you. But anyway.
Anything else before we wrap it up tonight?
Just thanks, everybody.
Appreciate you listening.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. It's much appreciated. We love you guys. Y'all take care. And until next time, read more comics and support your local stores. We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,